Okay, welcome to Four Lanterns, and welcome to your virtual tasting. Normally, we would greet you here when you come to the property. You should have received your box with 5 wines in them, the bottles. Each of these has roughly 2 ounces, which is enough for 2 people to taste, 1 ounce pour each. You'll also have some printed material. There's tasting notes on each of the wines that are in your box. There's wine club information, and there's information on how to order wines at the end of your tasting. So, let me give you a little bit of history about Four Lanterns. My wife Jackie and I purchased the vineyard in 2013 and established the Four Lanterns winery at that time. We moved here in 2014 and opened up the doors to serve our customers. And so, when we established, Jackie, come here. When we established the winery, we named it
Four Lanterns Winery.
After
our 4 daughters. They are the lights of our life.
And I always like to say, sometimes the lights burn brighter than at other times. We're happy you're here. We hope you're going to have a great time. We look forward to going through our 5 wines with you, and we'll stop back after we go through the wines and talk a little bit more at that point in time. So, cheers. Let's get going. So we're going to taste the Viognier now. I'm standing here, I guess we're all standing here in our tank room. These are the tanks we use to make our white wine. It's kind of a cool time to be here right now because you can see the frost on the side of the tanks. We're cold chilling some of our whites. We do that so that the potassium bitartrate precipitates out of the wine, and that ensures that it stays crisp and clean looking as you drink it. Our tasting notes, I believe, say it has stone fruit and pear on the nose, which it does. Beautiful wine, clean, crisp for a Viognier. Viogniers can be heavy at times. It just depends on how they're made. This one's a cleaner, more subtle Viognier, but it does have great flavors. Viognier is a bigger white grape than, say, Sauvignon Blanc would be, or Picpoul Blanc. So let's see how it tastes. I love this wine. I'm not sure I even knew what Viognier was before I came to Passarolas, but it's just a beautiful wine. The vines that this wine comes from are planted on the hill. If you've ever been to our vineyard, there's a big hill behind the tasting room. And they're planted on the terraces. They were originally smuggled into the country about 30 years ago, and the gentleman who smuggled them in thought it was Roussanne cuttings that he had. He sold Roussanne wine for several years, and then a local farmer was going by, looked at the vines and said, you know, that looks a lot like my Viognier. And so they got the vines tested, and it turns out it was Viognier, which I'm grateful for because I like Viognier a lot better than I like Roussanne. So one thing I would add, and it sounds a little strange, but this is my favorite après-ski wine. Normally you would think you'd have a glass of red wine after you've been outside skiing in the cold all day, but I find that I'm typically tired at the end of the day, and if you sit down in front of a big fire and drink a glass of red wine, I fall asleep. So a little bit of Viognier is beautiful, it's refreshing, and it allows you to go out and enjoy the rest of the evening. So enjoy your Viognier. Cheers. Welcome to the barrel. Welcome to the barrel room. So our shadow is what in the area would be called a GSM for Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, except ours is Syrah, Grenache, Mourvedre because it's 45% Syrah, 36%, I don't know the numbers. Yeah, 36% Grenache, 45% Syrah, 36% Grenache, and 19 Mourvedre. Why do you see a lot of that blend? One, because the 3 grapes go extremely well together, but typically that would be the grapes that you would find, at least the grapes that dominate, Chateauneuf de Pape blends from the Rhone Valley. And since these grapes are native or come from the Rhone Valley initially, that blending those three has become very popular in Paso Robles because it makes such beautiful and intriguing wines. It's a lighter bodied wine. I would say a medium bodied wine.
Medium.
Medium. Jackie said medium is medium. Great aromas. Our tasting notes say red and blue fruit, which is pretty generic. That doesn't mean a lot. When I smell it, I get strawberries. Maybe stewed strawberries. And there is maybe a hint of blueberry underneath, so yes, red and blue fruit. There we go. And a lot of strawberry on the palate. Black and white pepper on the finish. Very pretty wine. Medium bodied wines are great because they're so good with food. If you have a really huge, big red wine, which don't get me wrong, I love big red wines. Sometimes they're too much for your meal. But if you're gonna have, say, pork wine or duck or even salmon, a medium red can be beautiful with food. So I hope you enjoy this one. I certainly am. Cheers. So here we are in the tasting room. We're going to try Sardius. Sardius is our blend of 85% Merlot and 15% Cabernet Sauvignon. Merlot's a great grape. I know it got a bad rap years ago from the movie Sideways, but there's some beautiful Merlots out in the world, and it's one of the best grapes to blend and to work with. This particular Merlot is a fuller, richer wine than a lot of the other wines we have. It is in the medium to full body range, but it has some just very dramatic flavors. Your tasting notes say cherry. You may also note that the tasting notes on the Cabernet Sauvignon say cherry. It's different though. The Cabernet wine was a little more of fresh and bright fruit flavors. This is more stewed fruit flavors. Although it does have 15% of the Cabernet blended into it, it gives it a little more complexity than you would if we were just drinking Merlot on its own. A great wine, again. Good structure. You will note, for the wine geeks out there, some definite oak tones from the oak barrels we use on this wine. That gives it yet another level or layer of flavor to the wine. Osso buco, steak, there's all these great foods come to mind when you drink this wine. I hope you're enjoying it as much as we are. Cheers. Setting aside on our labels, when we first started, we had all of our kids paint the labels. They'd do a little bit of artwork. We'd sit at the dining room table, get the art sets out from when they were little, paint pictures, and we'd pick the ones we liked for the labels. Our youngest daughter, Sage, at that time was really trying, and any of the parents out there know that when you're watercoloring, the harder you try, the more paints get on the page, and then everything kind of turns brown. While she was doing this beautiful flower, the middle was red, and then the outside was yellow, and then more color got added, and more color, and then the outside just became this big puddle of brown. But we wanted Sage to have a label. So I took my phone, clicked the picture, and then expanded it so that all we got was the middle red part. And so that's where the label came from. It actually turned out to be one of our nicer labels. So here's to you, Sage.
Well, now we're on top of the hill on the Four Lanterns Estate Winery, surrounded by Syrah vines, and that's the wine we're going to taste. It's called Firelight. It's made from Syrah. It actually has a small percentage, 5 to 6% Viognier in the wine as well. That's an old technique from the Rhone Valley that helps fill in the mid palate, helps preserve and some of the color of the wine, and makes the finish a little bit nicer as well.
Syrah is an interesting grape. For those of you that are, Cab fans and haven't had a lot of Syrah, Syrah is earthier. It's a little bit funkier than Cabernet would be. It's kind of the difference between a steak and pork or venison. Maybe a little gamier is what I'm trying to say.
So I'm going to open this now. As I'm doing so, you can look over my left shoulder. You can see Hart Hill. The story that I've been told about Hart Hill is that the Booker brothers, who used to own this property and whose house is now on the adjacent property, back in the day, at a fairly advanced age, one of them fell in love, and the story is that he stood on this hill and his brother was across the small valley here on the other hill, and he instructed his brother which trees to cut to make a heart on what's now known as Hart Hill for this woman that he fell in love with. I don't know if that's true, but that's the story. So let's try the Syrah. You can immediately see darker, richer color, slightly opaque, or definitely opaque. Big, funky, rich. Again, still has that nice acidity to it. Just flavors just popping out all over the place. Strawberry, cherry, blackberry. Again, that underlying earthiness, funkiness. Rich, smoother palate, soft tannins, little medium tannins. So nice structure, great fruit. Definitely a bigger wine, something you would eat with a bigger, more powerful meal. Or just sit around the fire, drink a little Firelight.
Okay, now we're going to talk about our Cabernet Sauvignon. It's called Third Blue Hour. I'll give you a quick bottle shot. There you go. And it's Blue Hour because the Blue Hour is twilight. We wanted to name a wine after the twilight. So right off the bat, I get this almost cooked cherry, bright cherry kind of flavor going on, a little bit of quince. I think our tasting cards say forest floor, which is a little bit misleading because that depends on where you live. So my wife Jackie and I are both from the East Coast, and the forest floor in the Northeast smells a lot different than the forest floor might here in Paso Robles, because it's a lot drier here and arid, where it's a lot damp and mustier on the East Coast. But depending on where you are, or even if you've been to the East Coast and this brings back a nice walk you had in the Vermont woods, then more power to you. A lot going on there. One of the predominant things, and one of the things I love about this wine, is the structure. And what do I mean when I say structure? When people talk about a structure of a wine, to simplify it, think about tannins and acid. And think about them kind of creating a box that the wine lives in, and all the fruit flavors kind of in a circular motion live in that box or rotate around in that box. So one of the great things about this wine is it has a really nice structure to it, and that gives a platform for all those fruit flavors to kind of emerge and spring forth on your palate. Do get a little bit of that mustiness we talked about earlier. grapefruit flavors. That cherry does come through. A little less of the quince. And a long, long, beautiful finish. I hope everyone who's tasting at home is enjoying that. And it keeps going. So I should mention that we're here in Jackie's Vineyard. It's winter now, so the vines are dormant. Pretty soon we're gonna trim them back, prune them, and get ready for the spring. This is the vineyard around our home, and we have all of our Bordeaux varietals and Tempranillo planted here. All of our Rhone varietals are planted at the winery site. One thing I would note about this wine, and it's to carry through on that structure theme. So I haven't tasted that. I haven't tasted in probably 30 seconds or so. And I'm still getting that good structure and that good fruit. It's a little bit lean on the mid palate, which is kind of nice. And I would say this is probably a great wine for cellar aging, because those tannins will soften with time. That acid will integrate a little more into the wine. So it's a beautiful wine to drink now. I love it, but I think this could easily go 15 years or so in your cellar, if not more, and really become something dramatic when you pull out a wine at some point in time in the future. Well, thank you for joining us today. We had a great time. Of course we did, because we were sipping wine all day long. But it was really fun doing this, and I hope you enjoyed the wines. I'm going to turn it over to Jackie.
All right, again, thanks for joining us. So I hope you guys were able to use the little handouts with the tasting notes on the back for your wines to take notes. But two other things that were in your box were a little brochure that tells you a little bit about us and a little bit of information about our wine club. We are on our stage right now for our final shot. And behind us is the lawn and the tasting room. One of the things that we do in the summer, this is open for not only our wine club members, but also the general public, is we do a summer music series, which we weren't able to have this summer because of COVID, but we hope to be able to have it next summer. It's really a nice way to build our community around here, and just to celebrate and see our wine club members every Sunday night. The other thing I wanted to point out is in the far background on the left is our vacation rental. So that is open to the general public, but our wine club members get a discount on it, all associated with what wine club level they join at. So the last final thing I wanted to point out to you was our postcard. So on the back side of the postcard is probably the other most important information for you to have today. There is a discount code that you'll find in the little rectangle box to give you 20% off on your wines for today. Now, the best way to do this is, if you're interested in purchasing, is to go to our website, fourlanternswinery.com. If you go to the shop section at the top of the website and then hit current releases for the wines, you'll see the full menu of all our wines. You can choose whatever you want. In addition, if you want to choose the wines you tasted today or try some new ones, you're welcome to do that. And after you make your selections, when you're checking out, there's a section that says discount code. You want to put this discount code in there. Don't put it in where it says coupon code. Make sure you put it into where it says discount code. And then you'll automatically receive your 20% off.
That's only good for today.
That's only good for today. So please do this today. There's a time limit on it, and we want to make sure that you get that 20% off. Thanks again for joining us today.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.